For the sake of those who do not know who we are and those who might be watching a recording later on, we're Lifetime Success Seminars. My name is Charles Stephen. I'm a co-host of Lifetime Success Seminars. And we run these programs every other week, every other Saturday, and we raise conversations to our communities in areas of personal development. So anything to do with business, finance, lifestyle, spiritual matters, mental health, physical fitness, any of those areas, you name it, relationships, family. That's what we do, and we don't work in isolation. We work in collaboration with other organizations like ECA, To Live Women's Group, and many others. So this is what we do. We currently run our meetings through Zoom, but we hope to have physical meetings as well as the world is opening up after the pandemic. Good to have you guys here. So let's get started. Allow me to share my screen with you. I believe you can all see that. Give me a thumbs up if you can. So, power of repetition. Don't worry, this is the only Simpsons picture that you would have in my presentation. The very only. Right. This thing is not working. Let's see. Now, there you are. There you go. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about, and I'll be kind of covering this through pointers, if you like. And the first one is that success is habitual. So many times we think people become successful out of effort. Now, I need to be very careful how I put this across. Effort is necessary, but it's not the effort that brings success. People become successful, or failures for that matter, because of their habits, because of the things they do without thinking. You know, eventually it's what you do subconsciously, what you do habitually, what you do naturally, that will determine your success or your failure. Now, as we go on, you'll understand where effort comes in. And let me put this up front from the very beginning. Repetition is about effort. Okay, so I'm not trying to say effort is not important. I'm not trying to belittle it by any stretch of imagination. It's extremely important, but I'm just honing it in at the very beginning that it's not the effort that will bring you the success, because there are so many people that put in so much effort, so much work. The busy bees, the ones that Jim Rohn was talking about, but they're not getting the success that they want because either they might be putting the effort in the wrong place, or they might be putting the effort, but they're not consistent. So they're putting so much effort in one thing today, and then they're putting so much effort on something completely different tomorrow, and then they're putting so much effort in something completely different again the third day. So they're always grinding and working really hard, but because they're not consistent and they don't have that repetition, things don't add up because they're kind of counteracting themselves at every turn because they keep doing different things. So effort, yes, is important, but unless that effort is actually building a habit, it's not going to give you the results you want. It's not going to lead to success. So that's the point I wanted to bring across from the very beginning, that success is habitual and so is failure. So eventually what will determine your individual success is basically what you are at the core, what you are in terms of your habits, what it is that you tend to do, what it is that you naturally do when you're not thinking about things. You know what I mean? That is what is going to determine your success. And I've got this illustration here of an iceberg. The iceberg is a very good illustration, and it's used for so many different things because it creates an illusion. When you see an iceberg in an ocean, usually you just see that tip of an iceberg, and you even have that saying, "Oh, that's just the tip of an iceberg," which literally means that what you're seeing is an illusion. It looks very small, but there is something so huge that you do not see. And in this particular case, it's exactly the same. That when it comes to our actions and what we do and our success and everything, we all we see is what we do based on our conscious efforts. You know what I mean? Our willpower, our analysis, our decisions, what we do when we're actually thinking about it. Our conscious effort, that's what we see. But that only makes 10% of what we actually do. 90% of what we do is actually determined by things like beliefs, values, emotions, habits, imagination, intuition, things that you don't even think about, things that happens naturally. That determines 90% of your actions and 90% of your results, for that matter. And therefore, in a way, it has 90% bearing on your success or your failure. Okay, so but because these are things you don't actually see, these are not the things that you come on the forefront of things. You know what I mean? These are not the things you think about. Sometimes it's very easy to not see how important these things are. But eventually, we are creatures of habit, and we rely so much on what we do habitually to live, basically. So yeah, so humans are creatures of habit. Okay, and over 9% of what we do is what we always do. I mean, you take some time to analyze yourself, analyze your life, analyze what you do from the moment you wake up in the morning. And on a typical day, okay, you would do almost exactly the same things in the same order. You know what I mean? And you're not even thinking about it. You just be almost like on an automation almost. You just wake up in the morning. Maybe you're using an alarm. Alarm goes off. Some people have a tendency, they'll put a snooze for another 5 minutes, and then it'll go off the second time, then they'll get up. And if that's what they do, that's what they'll be always doing. Okay. Others, they hit it the first time and they're up. Others, they don't even use an alarm. Basically, they've got their own internalized alarm at exactly the same time they're up. Okay. But when you're up, it's almost like exactly the same thing. Like, for instance, with me, usually when I get up, I'll get off the bed. I'll sit on the side of the bed probably for another 3 minutes before I even get up. If you ask me why I'm doing that, I have absolutely no reason why I do that. It's not for health reason. It's not anything, but it's just become a habit now. Every time I wake up, I sit down for like 2-3 minutes, and then I get up. and the reason I'm saying this now is because actually I was analyzing myself this morning when I woke up, and then I sat there, and then I thought, why am I sitting here? Why am I not actually getting up? Why am I doing this every time? But that's what we do. We have these habits.
So you're not thinking about anything, Charles, like contemplating what your next day move is? Or...
I might be contemplating. I might be thinking about what I'm going to do next. I might be thinking about what's going to happen at the end of the day. You might be thinking about what's going to happen next year. I mean, it could be anything, but it's almost like become a habit that I never get up straight away. I always get up, sit, on the side of the bed for a couple of minutes, then I get up. It's just become a thing for me for some reason. But what I'm trying to point out is that on a typical day, over 90% of what we do is what we don't even think about. And if you sum total it up for the rest of your life, then you can see how much what we do habitually has an impact in our lives. And the things that we actually do differently make up a very small portion of our lives, a very small portion. So it is safe to say that actually the things we do habitually have a greater impact on us than the things that we think about. Though sometimes we think the things that we're actually doing deliberately by thinking about it have a greater impact. Because sometimes in that moment, that becomes the only thing, and you think, oh, this is great. But what you're forgetting is that chances are you'll only do that for an hour or two, or however long it takes you to do whatever that thing is. And then you'll revert back to your habits and your routines for the rest of your life. So eventually, it's your habits. And because your habits tend to be the same and repeating themselves, they tend to be cumulative in how they affect you. While the thing that you do occasionally when you're thinking about it, because it's not repetitive, it's something that you do and you end up doing something else later on, it doesn't seem to have the same sort of lasting impact. You understand what I mean? So it becomes, yes, it may be impactful at that moment. You feel like, oh, this is great, but because it's just a one-off thing, it doesn't carry forward as much, if you like.
Can I just share something just very quickly? Something I watched, it's similar sort of scenario. There was a video I watched where the husband says to the wife, she always cuts the end off the beef to put it in the oven. And he says to her, why do you always cut the end off the beef to put it in the oven? She said, I don't know, my mum always did it. And then she said, I'll ask my mum. And the mum says, oh, well, your grandmother always did it. And when they asked the grandmother, well, back then the ovens were smaller and we used to have to cut the end off to fit it in the oven. so you've developed that habit that is no longer relevant, but you just do it anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I think you've nailed a really important point there, Paul. That most of these habits, if you think about it, you may have so many habits that are really rudimentary. They're really not fit for purpose anymore. They're not there to serve any purpose whatsoever. You know what I mean? But they're still there, and they're still affecting your life. They're still affecting what you do. I mean, in that example, they might be losing a big chunk of beef. I don't know whether they throw it away or put it in the fridge. I don't know, but for something that they could have avoided altogether because it serves no purpose anymore. Because these days people have got huge ovens. So yeah, absolutely.
And,
so
and
habits.
three people I work with.
Yeah.
They will not cross on the stairs. If you're going down the stairs, they absolutely get ready. You need to go back up. It's like they've got that from family members or something, that this cross on the stairs is bad luck.
Is it a superstitious thing?
I think it must be. There's about 3 or 4 people I know that have this trait, you know.
Yeah.
And they swear blind it gives them bad luck if they cross on the stairs.
Yeah, but then again, to them it might be more than just crossing the stairs. It might be their beliefs or something like that. But then they may pass that on to their kids, who may not share that belief, but they may still have the same habit, because every single time they come to the stairs with their father or mother or whoever, they always wait for someone, or, you know what I mean? And then it becomes a habit, and then the same thing repeats itself again. So yeah, so we have so many habits. Most of the things, 90% of the things we do are habitual, and they do affect our lives. And it's very important to understand how these have an impact in our results. A good example is what Arthur was just sharing here. He was talking about how he gets distracted when he's at home with either Netflix or phone or this, that, or the other. Again, that could come down to habits, because you've gotten used to, when you are at home in certain environments, this is what you do. So it's like, it usually goes like this, right? If I go and sit on the sofa, for me, now this, I'm talking about me. If I go and sit on the sofa, I don't have to think about it. The next action I'm going to do, and I bet this will be the case 99.99%, is to get a remote control in my hand. And the next thing is I'm going to switch on the telly. And if you ask me at that moment, what is it that you want to watch on telly? I'll go like, huh? What are you talking about? Because the reason I've sat and grabbed the remote and switched on the telly is not because I thought that I want to watch something. No, but it's because habitually, that's what I always do. When I sit on the sofa, I pick a remote control, I switch on the telly. And more often than not, this is what happens, right? I switch on the telly, and then I might do something else, and the telly will go on a timer, and in a couple of minutes, it'll go off again. And then I'll realize it's gone off, and I'll go like, why did I switch it on in the first place? Because really, I didn't need to switch it on. But it's a habit that I've built over the years. Every time I sit on the sofa, I pick up the remote. So some of these distractions that we might have, it might be a phone for someone else. Others, at other times, and this even with me as well, with my phone, sometimes I might pick up a phone for a particular reason. Now, this shows the strength and the power of habits. I might pick up my phone for a particular reason. Say I want to call somebody, right? So that's why I've taken my phone off my pocket, I put it in my hand. But the moment I switch it on, I go into an automation mode. And this is what usually happens. The phone goes on, I slide it up, I stick in my pin, it goes on. The next thing, without even thinking, I've hit the, and this is with me now, I hit the WhatsApp button. And before you know it, I'm scrolling the WhatsApp messages and I'm reading messages and this, that, and the other. The next 5 minutes pass and I realize there is nothing much there. I switch it off, I put it back. And then a few minutes later, I realized, hang on a second, I didn't call that person that I wanted to call, but I did pick up the phone. You know what I mean? I don't know whether you can identify with that. And then you realize, oh, I need to pick it up again. And then you call the person. But why does that happen? It's because we get so driven by habits, by things that we do routinely, things that we do without even thinking. So So because that routine has been drilled into me, that you put the phone on, you put in the pin, and the next action is to hit the WhatsApp button and start scrolling messages, then that's what I always do. So understanding how humans work, and that we tend to be at our peak performance when we do things habitually, doesn't make your habits your enemy. Because sometimes you may look at it and think, I should be doing this. This is wrong. And it's almost you start fighting against yourself all the time. You should just understand that, this is how I operate. So how do I almost like train my body or create new habits that would take me to the success that I want? The new habits, the new routines that I'll be doing naturally without even thinking of, but will take me in the direction that I want to go. Okay, so that's the point here. That what you're trying to do is you're not trying to kill your habits. You're not trying to get rid of habits. You're not trying to act all the time consciously and deliberately, because the truth of the matter is we are creatures of habit. We operate at our best when we're doing things habitually. So what you want to do is you want to retrain, to reprogram your subconscious mind, if you like, in the way that you create new habits so that they will serve you for good rather than distracting you, as we've seen in the previous examples. Okay, so eventually, like I said, it's the habits that determine results and not the conscious effort. Now you see, so you see what I meant by effort doesn't bring success. Okay, so you need effort to drill in the habits, to do the repetitions enough to drill in the habits. But it is not the effort that will give you the results. Actually, it is when things have become automated and you can do them even without thinking, when it becomes you, part of you, if you like, then that's when success comes, because that's when you're operating at your optimum level, if you like. Anybody wants to chip in before we go to the next slide?
Just to say, they say, like, talking about automation and habits, sometimes you drive into work or something and you get to work and you think, oh my God, I never looked at that roundabout. I have no recollection of looking right and left at that junction. I have no recollection of crossing that roundabout or going through here. And what it is because it's in because you do the same route every day, it's in your subconscious mind, and you have your brain doesn't even remember it anymore. So you've got no recollection of having done it. It's just automatically done in your automated mind. And it's because you've done it repetitively for so long that it doesn't register. I guess that's what you're talking about. That's where you need to be with things that are good for your business or your life. You need to be doing it in autopilot, so it's not really a conscious effort. Absolutely. That's the whole point. I mean, and the driving example is a very good one, isn't it? We're not born drivers, are we? It's something we've actually learned to do. And at the beginning, it seems like an impossible task, isn't it? It's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to manage to do this? Yeah, clutch, mirror, signal, clutch, second, and you when you first learn to drive, you're going through all those combinations of sequences in your mind to remember it and get it right. But after years and years of repeating that, you don't even think about getting the clutch to biting point and moving forwards or anything like that. It's just something that happens, and you could be busy looking for traffic and you're just letting the clutch to biting point, and you're not even thinking about getting it to biting point. It just does it. Absolutely. And it's that, and that speaks of the power of habits. That speaks of the power of the subconscious mind. How much the subconscious mind controls everything without needing your inputs in any shape or form. It doesn't need you. Once you've trained it, once you've programmed it, it just goes on. And it's the most optimum performing part of your brain you could ever think. If you want to do things deliberately, you want to think about it. Where's the biting point? Can I hear the engine revving? How can I do this? It's so stressful. You can't do it. You can, but it's not good. You're not going to get a better performance by doing that. That's why in early years of driving is very tiring. And if you drive any distance, you have to keep stopping every hour and a half because I have a rest because you're absolutely tired. You're thinking about it. When you've been driving like me for 36 years now, I've been driving. I can drive for 5 hours straight and not even think anything of it. Exactly, because everything is automated, everything is optimized.
And that's how it is. So the point I'm driving across is that we need to look at our lives and the things that we do with the same approach. That if this is what our body is like, this is the best way to respond to situations. This is the best way to do things. If I want to do things well, then I have to do them habitually, because that's where my body is operating at its optimum, And so the point of our conversation today is to look at how we can actually achieve that. Bear with me 1 second. I want to close the curtains because they're actually, the sun is hitting me right in the face and it's not very good. Just 1 second.
That was a clever trick, Charles. You left, you exited on the left and came back in from the right.
Great Houdini, isn't it? I'm doing magic tricks as well now. I went that way, came out this way. Woohoo! Anyway, right. Let's crack on. The second point is rhythm. And again, like I said, I'm going to be talking about different aspects of repetition to kind of hone in the same point, really. That eventually it's all about repetition, forming habits bringing results determining your success. Okay, now rhythm is something that we see everywhere. I've got this lovely picture here of the seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and that shows rhythm. This has been happening since time began. You know what I mean? It's after spring, it's always going to be summer. After summer, it's always going to be autumn, and after that, it's going to be winter. I mean, if you don't like the arrangement, then you better take it up with the creator, man, because that's how it's always been, and that's how it's going to be for the rest of time. And that's what rhythm is. It's that consistent repetition of the same order of events, and it doesn't change. And we see this in everything. Nature basically operates on rhythm. And you look around everywhere, it's the same thing. And Rudolf Steiner sums it up really well. It says rhythm holds sway in all nature. And like I said, definition, what is rhythm? It's a regularly recurring sequence of events or processes in general. And we see this everywhere. In nature, systems operate rhythmically everywhere. Seasons, like I just said before, day and night, same thing. Again, after day, it's going to be night. Out of the 12 hours, it's going to be day, and then it's going to be night, and then it's going to be day. It's not, you're not going to have a day and then followed by another day and then followed by a night. It's never going to happen like that. It's always going to be a day and a night and a day and a night and a day and a night. And the same thing with animal migration. It comes through one season, the wildebeest are going that way. You know what I mean? And it comes to another season, they'll be going this way. You're never going to find them in season B going that way and in season A going this. No, they always do the same thing every single year. Okay, rhythm. Again, we see it in our own bodies. Your heartbeat, your breathing. Okay, and this is a very good example. If you can actually control your breathing. Okay, it's not that you can't control it. You can control it. You can choose to hold your breath. You can choose to breathe faster. You can choose to breathe slower. You can choose. You can do that. And there are certain scenarios where you have to override and do it manually. You know what I mean? Like an airplane pilot. You override and you start controlling it manually. You can do that. Well, not so much with the heart. Some people can actually slow down their heart rates. I don't know how they manage that, but some people can. You can speed it up by running, for starters. But you don't really have the voluntary control of it, if you like. Something you can say like right now, slow down now. You can't do that. But for breathing, you can. But even with that, your breathing mechanism operates at its optimum when you're not thinking about it, when you're not controlling it. When you don't think about it, like right now, you're not thinking about it. Probably you are thinking about it now that I've mentioned it. But before I didn't, your rate of breathing, the way you are breathing, the depth of breathing, everything is perfect, is optimized for your needs at that moment. until you take over and ruin it all. But naturally, the rhythm is always there in nature, and it's there, it's perfect, and it's necessary for survival, because without it, you can't survive. I mean, there is a condition called atrial fibrillation, which basically means you're having an irregularly irregular heartbeat. So basically, you're having a heartbeat that doesn't have a rhythm. It's very random. It's very erratic. It just goes on without any sort of pattern or sense or rhythm of any sort. It's called atrial fibrillation, and it's horrible. It's bad because basically you can't pump the blood around the body, because for blood to be pumped around the body, you need that rhythm, because so that there is a time for it to go out. There is a time when the heart relaxes for it to come back in on the other side. There is a time when it's pumped again for it to go to the lungs. There is a time for it to come back from the lungs. It's all rhythmically happening. But so when you lose that rhythm, because of illness or disease or something, and the heart starts pumping erratically everywhere, you fail to pump the blood properly. So you are yes, the heart is pumping, but because it's lost the rhythm, it can't perform its function properly. So you can see the importance of rhythm in all these different things. The same with seasons. Imagine if you didn't, you think, oh, summer is so great, so why don't we have 6 months of summer, and then we don't have winter because winter is not really that nice. Imagine what would happen. Imagine the way the ecosystem would be messed up. Imagine the damage you'll do to vegetation and to wildlife and to everything. Probably imagine even what that damage it will do to our own infrastructures and everything else. So without this rhythm, life can't be supported at all. Paul, you wanted to say something? You can come in.
Just the brain, heart, and breathing is all intertwined, and you can calm the brain. You can send signals to the brain and calm your mind down by getting it in sequence with your heart, called heart breathing and things like that. It's all, that's when you get control of it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, but the point I was making there is that with everything, there is rhythm in everything, and I was just pointing out the importance of that rhythm. That without it, the body wouldn't be able to function. The nature wouldn't be able to function. Anything won't be able to function, because it is that predictability that allows us to thrive, that allows life to thrive, basically, on this planet Earth that we live in.
Well, okay? Even the fight or flight, you're that's automatic, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You go into fight or flight mode,
Absolutely. So like I said, we perform at our best when we get a rhythm. And you see people talking about this in many different things. Some people may call it momentum. Some people may call it, swag. Some people may call it the flow. They may have different names for it, but at the end of it all, it's the rhythm. That you've become very predictable in the way you do things, that everything can be synchronized to that, and that's where we perform at our very best. Okay. What's next? So the next one is repetition forms habits. I mentioned this before at the very beginning, because at the end of the day, we want to inform our habits, because we saw at the very beginning that our success is determined by our habits. What we do daily, subconsciously, is what really is going to determine our results. So repetition is the benchmark. It's how one forms the habits. Okay, and I dare to say that it's repetition and not talent that separates world class from average. So many times we think it's talent that is going to get someone to greater heights of performance, whether in sport or in profession or in business or in anything for that matter. It's not. Actually, what is going to make someone world class is repetition. If you do something consistently for long enough, you will get better at it. And Anthony Robbins puts it really well. He says, how does it put it? It says, practice makes improvements. We have this saying that says practice makes perfect, isn't it? But he says it's slightly different. He says practice makes improvements. He's talking about the same thing exactly, but his point is that what you're seeking is not perfection. That's not what you're after. Because even what you might deem perfect can still be improved. Okay, so it's all about improvement. It's all about that next step. I mean, we look at Usain Bolt, with his record time in 100 meters, and say, oh my goodness, 9:50. What is it? 9:56, 9:58, I think. 9 seconds, 9.58 seconds, something like that. And you think, oh my goodness, that is perfect. That was a perfect run. But if you ask him, he's honest, and he's saying that my starts are not perfect. My starts are horrible. He feels like he's got a few tenths of a second just in his starts alone, and he feels he can improve that. So you can see perfection is an illusion. It's all about improvement. It's all about getting better at wherever stage you are, and it is repetition that will always make you better. It's the repetition that is going to get you to that next level.
Tommy, is it Tommy Wilkinson, the famous English rugby player that used to kick good goals?
Yeah.
Tommy,
it's is it Wilkins?
Wilkinson, somebody Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Anyway, they interviewed him and said, how is he so good at kicking goals at all angles on the rugby field? And he said to practice, he would spend a whole 8-hour day at the rugby pitch, and he would just literally be kicking goals for 8 hours solid.
And
that's
just repetition
repeat. And that's how he became so good at kicking the goals at all angles of the field.
That's repetition for you.
Yep.
That's repetition for you. And that's the thing. So on the outside, people might look at him and think, oh, this guy is so talented. This guy, oh my goodness, he can kick the ball like crazy. But it's not the talent. Yes, maybe it started with talent. Yes. I'm not saying he's not talented, but what got him to that level where the whole world is celebrating him is not the talent. It's actually the fact that he spent 8 hours every single day doing that very same thing constantly. And that's what got him to that level of almost. On the right here, I've got this illustration. I'm sure you've seen it in many places. They use it a lot in performance seminars and in workplaces and things like that. About it's all about learning, isn't it? That it usually starts with unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. Quite a mouthful words there. But yeah, and yeah. So usually when we're learning things, we always start from us not knowing what we don't know, because that's what unconscious incompetence means. You don't know what you don't know. So because you don't know what you don't know, you don't even look for it, because you don't know what to look for, because you just don't know. And usually someone informs you. You get informed. You get that waha moment, isn't it? Aha moment, and you're like, oh, so there is this, and you transition from unconscious incompetence into conscious incompetence. Now you've realized that there is this thing, and now you know that you don't know it. Okay, you've gone to the next stage of learning. At least you know there is something that you need to learn, but you still haven't learned it yet. Okay, and then that's when you start actively looking for information. That's when you actually start learning. Okay, this is the point of information. This is the point of you taking things in. Okay, and that will transition you from conscious incompetence to conscious competence. Okay, you remember the driving analogy? This is when someone is actually learning to drive. So everything they're doing, they have to think. Everything is drilled in these what you call them? Look, is it? What did they say? Mirror, signal, maneuver. Was it mirror, signal, mirror, maneuver, or something? I can't remember them anymore. It's been so many years since I did it last time. But you have all these things, and now I don't even have to think. I'm definitely sure I'm doing it every single time I get in the car. But if you tell me to recite it, I have no idea. Do I do mirror first and then signal, and then maneuver? I don't know. But if you put me in the car and watch me, I will do it perfectly because I'm already past that stage. But the conscious competence is when you have to do everything and you're doing it deliberately. Now, the sad thing is that most of the time, that's when we stop. We think, oh, we've got it now. Yes, I know. It's like a driver. When you say, I've learned to drive, I've gotten my license. Now I know how to drive. Yeah, brilliant. I'm a driver now. I've passed my test. So clearly I'm a good driver. I passed the test, and then you put a license in your pocket and you don't drive for the next 30 years. Imagine how you're going to be like when you step in the car for 30 years. Well, 30 years is a long time. After 1 year, you know what I mean? You're going to start all afresh again. Okay. I mean, I've been driving for what, a good 23 years. Okay. If I stop driving for a couple of years, I mean, if I stop driving even for 10 years, I'm sure if you put in the car, I'll be a bit rusty, but within a minute or two, I'll be like, I've never stopped driving. But it's because I'm already at the level of unconscious competence that is indrilled in my subconscious. I don't have to think about it. And that stays for longer. That is more in tune with me, if you like. It's become part of me, if you like. And therefore, it's very difficult to lose. But unfortunately, it sounds very silly, that example, but that's what we do in life most of the times. We try these new skills, we learn these new things in life. We take on all these new ventures and things, and we only take them as far as conscious competence. And why is that the case? It's because usually you start seeing the results. As you can see here, the conscious, it's the green one, right? And I think it's green for a reason, because you start seeing results. When you are consciously competent, you see results. You know what I mean? The results are because you are actually doing something right. The only difference is that you have to really think about it to do it right. It's probably taking you so long to do it right. It's probably taking so much energy and resources to do it right, but you are doing it right, okay? And so you're getting these results and you think, oh, this is brilliant. I've got it all figured out. You know what I mean? But you haven't. I mean, the same thing with these young kids, 18-year-olds who get their licenses and they think, now they are safe, good drivers. And then they go out there at night and they start partying and carrying people out and even drinking even sometimes, and they think, oh, now I'm a driver, I'm safe, I can take people home, and before you know it, they're involved in these fatal crashes even. And again, it's the same thing, because because you've gotten these results, you think it's brilliant, now I've mastered it, but you haven't. And it's unfortunate most of the time we actually stop there. It's the same thing. You go to work, you put in so much effort to get the job. Okay, you prepare yourself really well for your interviews. You do your homework, you do your studying. If it's a professional thing, you get yourself really prepared for the interview. You go to the interview, you smash it. You know what I mean? You get the job. You walk in first day at work and you think, I've got it. I'm the man. You know what I mean? But then you forget everything that you've done that has gotten you thus far, and all of a sudden you revert back to your old habits, and you start getting to work and doing it laissez-faire, and you find yourself 5-10 years down the line, you're still doing the same job. You haven't really made any other step after that, if you're lucky, that is, or you probably even have lost that job and you are doing something else. But it's because you didn't keep repeating doing the same things that gave you success in the first place. It is the effort, it is the tenacity, the repetition, the studying, all those things that actually got you from one step to the other. But then you got to that stage and stopped. Okay, and then the results start dwindling, and before long they vanish. I mean, we see this even in sports people. You've got people that break through in sports. In football, for instance, I follow football a lot, and you have these young players. They come alive. They light up the stage, the world football stage, and people think like, oh my goodness, this is the next Pele, this is the next Maradona, this is the next Messi. But how many of those have just sort of fizzled, in mediocrity in a span of a few years? It's the same thing. They thought, oh, I've gotten here now, or now I've made it, and they stopped doing what got them there in the first place. I mean, we have people like Ronaldo, who is 37 years old, but to this day, he's doing things on the pitch that kids of 20, 19, 18 years old can't even attempt doing. Why? It's because he never stopped doing what he was doing when he was 18. In fact, if anything, he's doing even more of that now. At Man United, he's joined Man United now. He's the oldest player by far, but he is the most hardworking player. He's the first one on the pitch. He's the first one on training, he's the last one out. He trains like crazy. He keeps doing the same things again and again and again, because he knows that to be world class, to be the best, it's not about you having the talent. It's about you actually keep repeating the same things again and again and again and again, and never stop. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And it is that repetition that will take you from this blue section here, conscious competence, to the unconscious competence. And this is where you want to be, where you're just doing things without thinking about it. You know what I mean? Last week, just Tuesday, I was actually at Old Trafford watching a football match. Man United were playing Brighton and Hove Albion, and Ronaldo scored in that game, which I was so pleased, because I really wanted Ronaldo to score when I was there, and he did, and it was a brilliant goal, and the whole stadium, 76,000 people, are like, oh, how did he do that? You know what I mean? But to him, he's probably done that 1,000 times just a week prior, probably. You know what I mean? It's not like, for him, it's not the talent, it's the fact that he keeps doing it again and again. So when he comes to that pitch in the midst of 76,000 people, it doesn't faze him, because he's done it so many times. And probably he doesn't even have to think about it, because, football at that level, you don't have time to think. Things are happening so quickly around you. So it's very instinctive, and he just does it. And we look at it and think like, oh my goodness, how can you do that? But it's all about repetition. He's done it so many times. So if you can have the same sort of decision, same sort of attitude in our own lives, in the things that we do, everything that we do, whether that be in studies, whether that be at work, whether that be in business, health-wise, exercise, anything. If we can stick to the routine, stick to repetition, stick to what works. And because the first thing is, you don't want to repeat anything, you want to repeat what works, okay? And so once you have that, you need to keep doing it consistently and repetitively, long enough until it becomes something that you do, something that you don't have to think about. It needs to get to a point, if it's about exercise, it needs to get to a point where you don't have to think about waking up in the morning and getting ready to go out for a run. If you're waking up in the morning, every morning, and you're still contemplating whether you should go for a run or not, then you're not on the unconscious competence yet. If it gets to a point that you find yourself out running and you kind of think, how did I get myself out here running? Then you're getting there, because you don't even have to think about it. It's the same thing like when brushing your teeth. You don't wake up in the morning contemplating whether you're going to brush your teeth that morning or not, do you? You just find yourself brushing your teeth and you don't even think about it. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm calling, that's what unconscious competence is. You're doing things because that's who you are. That's what you always do. Now, what you want to do, you want to drill in those good habits until it gets to that level. And that's when success starts coming. That's when good results start multiplying. And you're really reaping the rewards of that. And it becomes much easier because it's stress-free. That's who you are. You're just doing it because basically that's who you are, okay? So, yeah, I mentioned this before. Do not focus on stopping bad habits. And a lot of people, that's what they try to do. Is like, I need to quit smoking. I need to quit smoking. I need to quit smoking. Rather than thinking, what do I need to do instead? Because what you have to think, yes, something like smoking is more complex than just a habit, because there is biological dependence in it as well. But there is a habit element to it. Some people tend to smoke maybe when they go out, or maybe when they drink a lot, that's when they smoke a lot, or when they're meeting with friends who smoke, so that's when they smoke. So sometimes it may be you changing your habits altogether and start doing something different. So if it's you going out drinking that causes you to smoke a lot, then don't go out drinking. Why don't you try go out and for a game of golf instead, or go and play badminton, you know what I mean? Create a new habit instead. So rather than focusing on stopping a habit, focus on replacing it with a good habit, because when you replace it, it fills that void, okay? There is even a scripture in the good book, in the Bible, that says that if a demon leaves someone and goes out and then comes back later and figures out that place he left is still vacant, that soul he left is still vacant, what that demon does, it goes and fetches for 7 greater and more powerful demons to come and occupy that same person. And the state of that person, the Bible says, is worse at the end than it was at the beginning. I mean, it's exactly the same with habits. How many times have you tried to stop something only for you to end up doing it even more later on? It happens many times, but it's because what we tend to do is we are striving and we're using so much energy to stop it. And then we end up with this void that we haven't filled with anything else. And as a result, status quo kicks in, automation kicks in, and you walk right back to the same trap, and you end up doing the same thing, even worse this time, because of binge. So what you need to do is to focus on replacing it with something that is good, so that you fill that void, and therefore you make your life more meaningful, and you end up getting the results that you want. Now, new habits, they say, takes 18 to 254 days. We were led to believe by scientists in the past that it takes 21 days to create a new habit. 21 days is just the beginning of learning a new habit, but you don't create a new habit in 21 days. It takes close to 6 months to do that. Probably more, actually about 8 months, if depending on what it is that you're trying to do. But it starts from like 18 days to 254 days. And I think it's an average of about 66 days for a habit to start becoming automatic. And so it is hard work. And this is where the effort comes. You remember at the beginning when I talked about effort? This is where effort is very important, that you need to really have the discipline. If there is something that you want to achieve in life, if you want to say you are trying to cut down, you're trying to lose weight, and you want to join the gym, or you want to this exercise regime that you need to do, you need to be prepared to do it in the long haul, and you need to be prepared to do it consistently and rhythmically. Remember about rhythm? And rhythmically, to a point that your body will almost like take it on, and you'll be able to do it subconsciously almost. It becomes part of you. It gets to a point where when you don't go out running or you don't go out to the gym, you almost feel sick. You know, there are people who tell you literally they feel sick when they don't go to the gym, because it's gotten to a point that their body is so used to exercise that, you know, they can't do without. Rachel, you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to ask you something. You say effort does not give you a result. So what does it mean?
Yeah. What I'm saying is, when you talk of effort, I'm talking of effort in the sense of what you do consciously, what you're doing, what you're striving to do. Let me use that word, okay? And I'm using that in I'm trying to differentiate that with the things that you do habitually, okay? So what I mean is that if you rely on effort to give you results, it won't, because as long as it remains effort, it's not efficient. One, it's not efficient. Two, it's taking too much of your energy. Three, it's probably taking too much of your resources. So chances are you'll do it for so long and then you would stop. And four, if every single time your life always seems to be laborious with everything that you do always, then that speaks about your consistency. What do I mean by that? It means that you tend to start things, stop them, start other things, stop them, start other things. So there is nothing in particular that becomes natural with you. You haven't gotten to the unconscious competence, if you like, the blue section, okay? Because what you want to do, you want to get to the blue section where you can do things without really breaking a sweat. Breaking a sweat in the sense that it's what you do. It's become part of you. You know, like the example of Ronaldo I told you. When he plays football, to him, the tricks he does, the shots he does, the way he runs, what he does, to him, it's what he does. But why has he gotten himself there? Yes, it took effort and repetition to get him there. But when he's actually performing, it's unconscious competence. He's doing it out of habit. He's doing it naturally from himself. And that is where you get successful, rather than the effort. I don't know whether that makes sense.
So you mean it's all working together? Or
exactly. So it's like it starts with effort, but unless that effort translates to habit at the end, your results will always be mediocre. So you will still get results. Like I said before, on the conscious competence, the green section, you are getting results. You know what I mean? A person in that place can drive a car. You know what I mean? Probably already has a license, but he still needs to think about everything. Okay. So the thing is, if you want great results, if you want to be world-class, and it is whatever it is you want to do, you want to move out of that. You want to end up in the unconscious competence where you can do these things without even thinking of it, because it's become part of you. And it is at that stage where you can do these things very efficiently, very optimally, and you can really make an impact both in your life and in the life of others, because at this point, it's part of you. It's part of who you are, if you like. I don't know whether that makes sense. Paul, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I've just got two very quick examples. One relates to me personally. I had an old 5 Series BMW, and I needed to do some work on it, which involved me taking the inlet manifold off of it. Yeah. And I hadn't done one before, and it took me, the first time I did it, took me best part of 2.5 hours to get the inlet manifold off. And then, to cut a long story short, a couple of other issues came up over weeks, so I ended up taking that manifold off over the space of 3 months, about 4 or 5 times to fix something. And what took me 2.5 hours the first time was eventually down to 45 minutes or less, because I knew what I was doing, and it wasn't an effort anymore, because I knew exactly what bolts and what routine to do to take that off. Whereas when I first started, it was a real effort. I had to really think hard about how I was doing it. And another one, there was a garage my dad took his car to, and I spoke to the guy there, and he had a mechanic there that he was good at doing Ford Transit gearboxes or clutches. The Ford manufacturers state that it takes 4.5 hours to do a clutch on a transit van. And this mechanic had done so many, had worked out shortcuts, he could do it in 3.5 hours. So even an hour shorter than the manufacturer, because he'd done it so many times and he'd been able to do it more efficiently.
Absolutely.
So it's just to give it another example. Once you've got into the habit of doing a certain job, it's no longer arduous anymore. Like to me, going out and taking the manifold off, the last couple of times I took it off, it didn't even faze me. It wasn't like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. That's such a big job. I knew exactly what I had to do, and I knew it'd be a quickish job.
Absolutely. In that very same example, Paul, imagine now you were probably doing more than just a manifold in that particular job you're doing. You're probably doing other things as well, and you still managed to cut that time down that much. Imagine if you were working for a company and all you do is just putting apart a manifold. That's all you do. You know, you come in, that's your job description. You come into work, you clock in from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 in the evening. All you do is just putting apart manifolds. Imagine how quick you could be able to do that. Probably do that in half an hour. Probably do that in 20 minutes. Who knows? You understand? And that's why in most factories they have assembly lines. You know what I mean? And people will be doing the same thing. They might complain like, oh, this is boring. I do the same thing every day. I've been doing the same thing every day for the last 5 years. But your employers know that is the most efficient way to get work done. Because if you keep changing what you're doing every single time, you will always do that job for 3.5 hours, like what Paul was saying. But if you manage to do it repetitively, constantly, every single time, you may not be very good at doing anything else, but in that one thing, you will be exceptional. And that's what power of repetition does. Yes, Paul.
Even to knowing which tools I would need, I could get the tools ready to do that specific job, and I need this size socket, this size spanner, whatever.
So
it was just a personal example. That's all that was. It was just that repetition, it makes life easier and it makes it less arduous.
Absolutely. And these personal examples, they bring these concepts alive, don't they? Because that's what it is. So it's all about effort. Is very important, but it's all about making sure that through repetition, you almost like make that effort go farther, if you like, because you've become better at doing things. You've become more skilled at it, and it becomes more natural with you. You don't even have to think of it, and therefore it's more efficient. And that's the point. And maybe let me use this point to actually point out something. You know, in anything, success is not. I don't know whether I can do this with you. Hang on. Let me try and pause this sharing for a second and see if I can draw something for you that you can see. Stop sharing. Let me try and share a whiteboard. Don't think I've done this before, but let me try. Can you see that whiteboard, guys? Can you see? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. You can see a whiteboard, right? Okay. Now, if I'm drawing a curve, right? Right, and call this side results. Can I write the full word? The handwriting is horrible because I'm using a mouse to write. Results, and let's call this time, right? Okay. Now, if you're in any typical endeavor, you're trying to do anything, right? Usually, if you're doing something for the first time, it will take you, well, you start from here. You start from 0 time, 0 results. This is the 0. 0 time, 0 results. This is where it starts. At first, you'll be taking so much time, but you're getting very little results. Okay? Why? Because you're not proficient at what you're doing. So you're taking so much time, probably even longer, but you're not getting any results. But as you're doing it more often, as you keep repeating it, as you're doing it more, you become more proficient at what you're doing. Then what happens to this? It starts going up. So now you're starting to get more results at any given time. And as you keep going, this keeps going that way, and keeps going that way, and keeps going that way, and keeps going that way, keeps going that way. Okay? But why does it keep going? Why does it change? Because you become more proficient, you become more skilled, you become more able, you have, if it's a business, you have better networks, you have better customer base, you have learned your lessons, you make less mistakes, you whatever. But eventually now it gets to a point where you're getting exponential results in a very small span of time. Let me show you, for instance, from here to here, all this time, let me call it time t, right? You've only gotten these results. You've only, well, maybe a bit more. We've only gotten that result at the beginning. If I do the same time here, same amount of time, yeah, to about there. If I went up and tried to find where that curve would actually meet that, it's see the amount of results that you have now in the same time, but after you've become proficient. You've repeated that same thing constantly for so long, and now you're getting a lot more result in the same time. This is what we call the success curve. Success curve follows the exponential line. So many times we think we are under the illusion that success follows a linear curve. We think success goes like that. A lot of people think this is how success looks like. And as a result, they give up so easily. Why do they give up? Because imagine if you thought this is how success looks like as a straight line, and you start your journey, right? Let me erase this same picture. Okay, where's my draw? Oh, there it is. Oh, what's going on? No. Where's my pencil? Nah. Now this is nope. What have I just done here? Format, undo. Let me just do undo. Undo again. Undo. 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 Does anybody know how to get rid of this eraser thing?
There should be a sign you can choose the pencil. Is there a picture at the top? There should be What is that? What program?
I'm looking for a pencil. I can't. That's the thing. I can't see a pencil. It's part of. It's a whiteboard. It's a Zoom whiteboard.
It's Zoom whiteboard.
Yeah, I can't find the pencil again for some reason. It's gone. Oh yeah, I've got it now. I've got it. It was on a drawer. It was on a different. Yeah. Okay. Now let me go back to it again. Now I've told you the first time about a straight line. If you think that's the success curve, all right. If you start a new venture, you've started a new business, you've started a new exercise regime, you've started a musical class, you're starting to learn to play piano, you've started a new friendship, anything, whatever it is that you're trying to do, started a new course at uni. What tends to happen is you start like before, it goes like that, very slow, like that. I'm trying to make that as a statement. So in your head, what do you think? Because you thought that it's a straight line, you think it's going to continue this way for the rest of time. So what is your conclusion? That it's not worth it. I'm using too much energy and it's too stressful. Nah, this is not worth it, because you think that the results you're getting at the beginning in comparison to the effort that you're putting, you remember the effort, you're really struggling, like a person who is learning to drive. So many people give up driving because of that. When they're learning, they feel like, this is too much hard work. And they think like, is this how it's going to be for the rest of my life? I'm like, nah, I'm not having this. You know what I mean? Because they think that the line that they took at the beginning is going to continue for the rest of their lives. And so they get to this point and they do what? They give up. Or they get to this point and they give up. And the problem with giving up is when you give up, if you start again, you're going to start from the beginning again. If you start again, you're going to start from the beginning. So every time you start in the beginning. Whether you're starting the same thing after a long time or you're starting a new thing, a different thing, it will go like that. So it starts, you get here, you give up, you start again here, it goes a little bit high, you give up, you start again, it goes. So you never get to these heights of anything because you always give up because you think that's how it's always going to be. So understanding success curve really galvanizes it. It really gives you the impetus to keep pushing when the going gets tough, because you know eventually you will break through. Eventually you'll come off this difficult phase, this first phase here, and you'll get to this phase of explosion where results are happening around you and you wonder, is it the same person? Why? Because now you become proficient at what you do. The Ronaldos of this world, the Messis of this world, all these great people, the Richard Bransons of this world, this is where they're operating right now. They do something for a very short time and they're getting crazy results. Why? Because they're not doing it for the first time. They have done it a million times, okay? If you get Richard Branson now to learn to play piano, well, I don't know whether he knows how to play piano, but if he doesn't, he will start here like everybody else, okay? He will start here like everybody else. Maybe the difference between him and ordinary people is because he has been here so many times and he knows how success curve works, he might have greater energy to endure this. But it's not that he's going to skip it. He's going to have to endure it, but he will have the impetus and the energy to endure it because he knows from experience that this will turn to this. Does that make sense? Yeah. So let me stop sharing from that.
I've put off jobs before because like gearbox jobs and things, because the amount of time it's likely to take me at home on some ramps and things without all the fancy tools they have in a garage. And I haven't done many of them. And this exactly relates to that. Yes, okay, the first time I wouldn't be able to charge the amount of money for the time it takes me to do a clutch or take the gearbox out. But if I did that a dozen times, it would then condense the time down. I'd know exactly where to jack it up or what to do to get it out. And so it's right. It does put people off.
Absolutely.
Especially in the business sense, because if you can't do it efficiently, you're not going to make enough money on the job because you can't always charge for your time if it takes longer than normal because you haven't done that job before. Absolutely.
And it works exactly the same if you're looking through your health and fitness. It's the same thing. How many people are trying to lose weight and they do that? The first morning they go out walking or running. When they get back, they go straight on on the weighing scale. And they don't see any results, you know, and they keep doing that for a week or two, and they don't see the results, or they don't see the amount of results that they expected for the effort that they had put in, and they give up. Okay, it's because they're still at the starting curve. So if you understand the success curve, you will always have that in you that, yes, now it's difficult, I'm not getting the results I want, but it's always going to get easier. Eventually I'm going to get those exponential results if I keep at it, if I keep repeating. And that's the power of repetition. Power of repetition is all about the success curve. It's all about doing the same things again and again, not stopping, not giving up, keeping the rhythm, and eventually it becomes natural with you, and you start getting multiple results. Okay, right. I'm going back to my presentation. Time has run out really, and I don't want to spend too much time. Let me see where we were and what we can do. Right. Okay. So yeah. So like I said, guys, the aim is to get to the unconscious competence where you can get things done subconsciously almost, and that's where you want to be. Okay. Now there is a simple concept again that I want to use to hone in the same point as well, and it's elastic versus plastic change. Now I'll just describe what this is. This is a physics concept. That if you're stretching something, if you're stretching an elastic band, for instance, it will stretch for so long. And usually when you stretch it, when you release it, it comes back to exactly where it was originally, isn't it? But if you stretch it far enough, or if you've been stretching it for too long, many times, right? Eventually it loses that elasticity, doesn't it? For instance, you've seen sometimes you have this nice jogging bottom that after some time it kind of loses that elastic band on the waist and it starts, slagging off, because you have been stretching it many times. You stretch when you wear it, it goes back when you take it off. You do that for a couple of years, eventually it loses that elasticity, if you like, that ability to return to its original form. And when that happens, that is called a plastic change. Plastic change is when you deform something or you stretch something and it does not return to its original shape. Okay, so and therefore that change becomes almost permanent. And it may not be the full change. You may stretch something this much, and rather than returning to that, it may just return to this. So it's returned somewhat, but not to its original shape. That's still plastic change as well. So how does that? You may wonder, why is Charles telling us about this elastic and plastic thingy? What bearing does it have on repetition? Okay, like I said, elastic change represents temporary and always returning to original state, and most of the times that's who we are. That's what we do. Because we are creatures of habit, we always tend towards what we always do. Okay, if I'm not an exercising kind of person, and I've never been exercising, if I start exercising now and I put a lot of effort in it, there is always a tendency to going back to not exercising because that's me. Okay, so there is always that elastic tendency that if I put my guard down a little bit, if something happens and say I couldn't go running for a day or two, chances are I might lose everything and go right back to me not exercising at all. That is elastic change, and that's what we do most of the times. And this is where we put so much effort. You remember when I talk about that effort doesn't give you results? It's because of elastic change. So many times we put so much effort, but because we don't sustain that effort long enough to turn into plastic change, where the change is permanent, we always revert back to our usual self, our old self, if you like, and therefore we don't get the results that we want. Okay. So you have people year after year trying to lose weight. You have people year after year trying to take on a new challenge, maybe to learn a new musical instrument, to learn a new language, to find a new job, to start a new business. Year after year, they are always at the same point. Why? Because they give it a go, but they don't go beyond the elastic limit. We call it elastic limit when things start deforming permanently. They don't go beyond the elastic limit, and every time they stop, it goes right back. They snap right back like an elastic band. You do this, you let it go, it snaps right back, okay? And usually it's quite painful when it snaps back. like an elastic band, because you kind of feel like a total failure. You've lost your resources, you've lost your ego as well, because you said you're going to do something and it's failed, whether it's a business or exercise, whatever that is. So, but that's human nature. Okay. What is plastic change? Plastic change is when the change becomes permanent. You've adopted that new state. You've become the change. Like I said before, you've gone out for a run so many times that you become a runner. You almost identify yourself as a runner because that's who you are. You understand what I mean? And that's the place you want to get yourself, because when you get to that place, even when things happen and sort of disrupt you for a moment, because life will disrupt you. Life is disruptive. Let me put it out there right now. Life will disrupt you at every turn. But at that point, when you've got into a plastic stage, even when you get disrupted, you will never go back to your old self, because you have become a new self, if that makes sense. So in anything that you're doing, always strive to reach that benchmark where you actually change yourself and you become the new person. Okay. So like I said, actions cause elastic behavior change. When you do any action, you know, like through this seminar right now, you know, some of you might be thinking, you know what, I'm inspired now. I'm going to make sure that that thing that I was going to do, I'm going to do it every day, repetitively for the next 2 months, 3 months. Charles said 66 days is the average to have a new habit. I'm going to do it. Okay. If you start doing it tomorrow, it's brilliant. But I can tell you now, it's still elastic behavior. And you should know that, because what I'm saying is, if something happens and for some reason you get distracted and you stop doing it, you'll go right back at the beginning. Okay. When does it become plastic? Let's see. It becomes plastic when it's repetition that leads to plastic. When you do it so many times, like the example I gave you before, you know, that jogging pants that you love so much, but you can't wear it anymore because now it's kind of loose on your waist. That is plastic change. You know, you've worn it so many times, you know, stretch it, relax, stretch, relax, stretch, relax. Eventually, it loses that stretchability. It becomes deformed, and that's plastic change. It's acquired a new shape, okay? So that's what you want to do. You need to change you by repeating, drilling that thing until it becomes part of your second nature, okay? So real change happens when habits change, not just actions. A lot of people make a mistake of thinking that when my actions change, then real change is happening. No, real change will only come when your habits change, not your actions. You know, because your actions can change every day. But if your actions change every day and it's new action every day, you're never going to create new habits. And if you don't create new habits, you're never going to have lasting change in your life. So the most important thing is to make sure that you keep repeating the same things constantly and repetitively and consistently. And it takes discipline, and it takes grit, and it takes effort to get there. But the aim is to actually inform your habits. And so when your habits change, that's when real change happens. Okay. I'm going to pose a final question to you guys for today, and then we'll probably continue next time, because I don't want us to spend any more time than we have already. And the question is repetition boring? Okay. A lot of people compare these two things, isn't it? Spontaneity, you know, being spontaneous versus being repetitive. Okay, so which one is better? Is repetition boring? Is being spontaneous better than repetition? What do you guys think? I want us to end our conversation on that, and then we'll pick that up from here onwards in our next seminar. So let me stop sharing and let me hear from you guys. What do you think?
I think they can both be the same, but I think once you've got, if you're doing repetition and something you enjoy, it becomes even more enjoyable. That's how I perceive it. So spontaneity can be exciting, but it's a bit more nerve-wracking, and because it's something spontaneous you're not used to, it might be a little bit pleasurable. But in the same breath, that spontaneous thing, if you do it initially spontaneously and then repeat it, it becomes even more enjoyable because it's easier, or it's more fun. It's not, you're having to think so hard. You're just enjoying the moment. That's just my first reaction.
Thanks, Paul.
Really.
Thanks, Paul. What do others think? Eva, nice to see you, Eva.
Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm going to come in and maybe agree with Paul. And I was just thinking about the quote that success is hidden in your daily routine or your daily habit.
Yep.
So is repetition boring? I think it depends on what you're doing. Some things you need to repeat to aim that success. But again, it shouldn't stop you from being spontaneous in different things. So they're both equally needed, but it depends on what you're trying to cultivate. That's what I think.
I like
because
that.
spontaneity is important because you can't be so rigid. I mean, you've got to be, and I think the spontaneity also, in my sense, almost feels like trying new things to me. Or just saying, let's do this, let's not procrastinate too much. And if that doesn't work, or if it doesn't, if that path is not for us, then we can be able to identify it quickly rather than the path not taken, you know? So that brings up a whole new conversation.
No, it's a brilliant conversation. It's a brilliant conversation. No, we don't shy away from any conversation. But I hear what you're saying. Absolutely. And I agree with you on that. Yeah. Brilliant. Who any other opinions? What do you think? Repetition, spontaneity, is repetition boring? What do you think? I mean, you can speak about it from any point of view, from your work, for instance, where you go to work. Do you do the same thing all the time? Do you have something new to do every day? Do you find your work boring because you do the same thing all the time? Do you find it nerve-wracking because you're doing something new every day? What do you think? There is no right or wrong answer. No more contributions? Right. Okay. So yeah, I'm not going to tell you where my stand is on that one, because I want to save that for the next session, which is in 2 weeks' time.
That's not on, Charles. You can't do that, mate. You just can't do that.
I'm hooking you in for next time.
Boy.
This is when I'm going to ask you to pay. Right. Anyway, yeah. So yeah. Thank you so much, guys, for joining today. Next time we'll take it from there. Look at why people might think repetition is boring. Why people might think spontaneity is the way to go. Or should I say, spontaneity is exciting, and they are both right in some ways and wrong in some ways. So we'll kind of look at it holistically, and because personal development is like that. There is no right or wrong answer, if you know what I mean. But it all depends on where someone is coming from. But we'll have that conversation when we meet again in 2 weeks' time. But thank you guys for coming. But the point I just want to leave you with today, if you're going to forget everything today, I just want you to remember one thing, that it is the habits that will determine your success. Not what you're doing today. Not necessarily the effort that you're putting today. The effort is brilliant if that effort is targeted at changing your habits, if that makes sense. So you need to put effort, you need to put a lot of effort in, but it needs to be channeled at changing your habits, because eventually 90% of what you do is going to be habitual anyway. So you want that to be addressed. And the way to address that, it is through the power of repetition. Keep doing the same thing constantly, again and again, having that repetition, doing it constantly for long enough until it becomes part of you, part of your routine, part of who you are, and you'll see results multiplying. Yes, Rachel.
So if it become part of your life, it's not boring then.
There you go. Now you're coming. Now it's
not boring.
There you
it's
go.
Part of your life. So
it's become part of you. It's almost like part of your DNA, if you like. So
it's not boring, because I'm gonna like it, enjoy it, confident. So I think it's not boring now.
Excellent. Yeah. I totally agree with you, Rachel. And on that note, I think let's call it an evening. Thank you guys for joining, and I wish you all a wonderful weekend. I will see you all in 2 weeks' time. Take care.